Times are hard. People can be cruel and indifferent to one another. So let's talk about a 20-year study published in Nature about birds being friends. This is a superb starling. That is a value judgment, but it is also the name of the bird species. They're a long-lived passerine bird found in East Africa. They live in groups of between 7 to 60 individuals. They're so chatty that local vervet monkeys learn to respond to their alarm calls because if the superb birds are disturbed, it's time to stop doing whatever you're doing and get on out of there. These 7 to 60 superb starling social circles are far, far smaller than the murmurations that starlings are famous for. The signature synchronized flocking behavior can absolutely include social bonding behaviors, but a murmuration typically involves far, far more birds than the day-to-day social group we're talking about here. 60 starlings would not a murmuration make. Those things can be thousands or even hundreds of thousands of individuals. But 60 starlings is also larger than an immediate family group. That's like a little neighborhood worth of birds, and just like a little neighborhood, superb starling social groups include both kin and non-kin who help each other out, making starling groups more than just herds who group up for safety in numbers. Scientifically, our researchers call this neighborhood-sized group a cooperative breeding society. Some members will forego breeding in order to help out the ones raising chicks. For instance, helpers would bring food for the baby birds and feed them, or they would guard the nest while breeding parents are away. As an evolutionary model, there's a certain rationale. Helper birds who don't breed aren't laying their own eggs and passing along their genes that way at the moment, but their genes are still propagated through the kin whom they help. It's the bird equivalent of your cool aunt. That model makes the most sense for extended family groups, but again, these starlings are in bigger groups than that and include both kin and non-kin. These social groups are ones where females help out, but never breed in the group they're from. So some number of male and female birds will immigrate to new social groups. These social structures maintain genetic diversity and low average relatedness of the group as a whole, while still maintaining kin relationships within the group. In fact, a lot of cooperative breeding societies in birds and mammals form these kind of mixed kin groups where some members of the social group are related and some aren't. So, our question is, in these mixed kin groups, do the helper starlings preferentially help out kin in order to maximize the survival of their own genes? Are these few dozen starlings a bunch of extended families helping each other separately, or is this more of a co-op kind of thing? To find out, our scientists professionally birdwatched for 20 years, following 9 social groups of superb starlings through 40 breeding seasons at the Impala Research Center in Kenya from 2001 to 2021. In that time, they observed 410 nests and analyzed over 12,000 helping events across 1,175 individuals. That's so much parental support! To confirm who was related and who wasn't, they got DNA samples from the birds and tracked them through colored light bands, making these gorgeous birds even more fashion. As fits that evolutionary cool aunt indirect fitness benefit we talked about earlier, in some ways, the birds did help out kin more than non-kin. Birds were much more likely to become helpers to breeding parents when they, like the characters of the Fast and Furious, were family. But not in terms of whether the bird was likely to help out, just in terms of when these birds help, whom are they helping? These helper starlings spent just as much time, 51% of their overall helping time, on the chicks of birds that weren't related to them. It suggests that supporting family is important to starling societies, but the evolutionary benefit to their groups isn't purely the indirect fitness benefit of making sure your little bird nieces and nephews and nibblings survive to adulthood. That benefit could be simply that helping anyone in your group helps maintain the size of the group. Starlings in larger groups are more likely to survive, so there's a direct benefit to each bird making sure that their group's baby birds of a feather become the largest flock together. In other words, group's more likely to make it through when everybody helps each other out. So, in this field of research, the idea is that those are the two types of evolutionary benefits in this type of cooperative breeding society, like superb starlings. One is helping your family, the other is group augmentation, aka safety in numbers. Helping kin is considered an indirect fitness benefit, while group augmentation is a direct fitness benefit because an individual is literally more likely to survive and eventually reproduce if they help group members survive, related or not. But our researchers also looked at more than just kin or not kin. They looked at the individuals each bird was helping. And as it turns out, these birds weren't just like, hey, I got a minute. Anyone need me to go run to the corner branch for worms? In fact, these starlings were significantly more likely to repeatedly choose to help the same non-kin individual bird than they were to offer random assistance. They made friends. The birds helped their friends. And the best part? Remember how this was a 20-year study of a long-lived bird species? They were able to track these individuals over time, which is how our researchers discover that bird friends help back. Sometimes individuals who had helped breeding parents later became parents themselves, and their friends turned around and became their helpers. Reciprocity relationships, it turns out, happened among non-relatives, but with relatives as well. Sometimes you help your family, and later your family helps you. In fact, over the years, as the experiment went on, researchers gathered enough data to see that even controlling for kinship, reciprocity was a strong predictor of help. Reciprocating friends were 169% more likely to help than pairs that did not reciprocate. And it took a while of watching these individuals to see the pattern because obviously they've genetically determined whether two birds are related, so you can see those helping dynamics very quickly, but you need multiple seasons to observe this. This season I got you, 2 breeding seasons from now, you'll watch my nest while I stretch my wings and have an adult conversation. Had this experiment not run for 20 years with 2 breeding seasons per year, our researchers would have missed the slow boil relationships between these birds. The kinship effect becomes evident after only 3 seasons, but it takes 27 seasons for the data to reveal that these birds have statistically significant others. And yes, I'm soft, because birds made friends, and they help their friends. When their little buddies become new parents, it's very lovely and sweet. But it's also a meaningful and novel scientific finding. Again, the current thinking in the field is that cooperative breeding societies are helping their family because it helps their genetic relatives survive, and helping non-relatives to maintain their safety in numbers. There really hasn't been evidence to support reciprocity as a predictor of helping behaviors among non-human animals. Looking at the study, I can see why. These nerds had to be allowed to bird watch for 13 and a half years to gather enough data to detect this. And, by the way, even after 20 years, these researchers pointed out the effects of reciprocal helping were still trending upward when they finished the study. And if they'd only been allowed to bird watch a little longer. Nerds. But with all this, we can see that the evolutionary benefits of kinship and group augmentation aren't enough to explain the superb starling's behavior. If that were it, these starlings would help their family members, and so long as their family members were okay, they'd help out any random starling just to ensure the survival of the group. If you're just trying to make sure your group mates survive, why would you particularly help a bird who previously helped you? You definitely wouldn't help an unrelated friend if a family member also needed your help. And yet, these birds absolutely helped non-kin with whom they had reciprocal relationships, even when nests with kin needed help at the same time. If all these birds were doing were maximizing their chance of genetic material surviving through their relatives and through themselves by keeping a large flock, reciprocity would play no role. These relationships occurred between all sexes and weren't linked to mating behavior. The explanation that fits the facts, at least according to these authors, is that engaging in back and forth helping and cooperation stabilizes superb starling social structure over time. Calculated reciprocity based on reasoning might be a high cognitive bar, which is why this whole idea has historically been so controversial in this field. But these researchers argue it doesn't have to be quite that deep. Instead, reciprocity can be a sort of reinforcement mechanism for cooperation. I'm helping you without immediate evolutionary benefit to myself, and if you help me back, that's reinforcement for my previous cooperation. And it's just one factor among many that incentivize cooperation among starlings. Kinship and group augmentation are absolutely still part of the story, but reciprocity is just one more factor in their cooperative social structure. So yes, this is scientific evidence that birds make friends and they help their friends. But it also contextualizes the capabilities of other cooperative species and how their behaviors evolved. Human mammals, for one, are a highly social species, and there's a large body of evidence across many individuals demonstrating reciprocal helping behavior. Those behaviors, the study shows, didn't evolve exclusively in humans, and by studying species like these starlings, we can compare and contrast against other cooperative social species. In this case, we can see the evolutionary benefits of cooperation and maintaining social bonds in a species that's subject to a harsh and capricious natural environment. As these authors put it, quote, forming reciprocal helping relationships with non-kin may therefore ensure that the necessary help is available in frequent but unpredictable times of need, as it does in superb starlings.